How could it be that the spies, after all the miracles they witnessed, the 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea, the revelation at Mount Sinai, they didn't have faith and confidence in Hashem that He could bring them into the land of Israel? How could they lose their faith so shortly after seeing such open and revealed miracles? And the answer is that they had a lot of faith in God. What they lacked was faith in themselves. They didn't believe in themselves. They had fear. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. But they say that fear is an acronym. FEAR stands for false evidence appearing real. And so they were afraid of failing in their conquest of the land of Israel. But yet there were 2 good spies. And they came back with a positive report, and they had confidence and faith in themselves. So we have to ask ourselves, what was the secret of these 2 good spies, Caleb and Joshua, Caleb and Yeshua, that they did not fall prey to the instincts of fear and cowardness and lack of confidence? What did they have that the other 10 spies didn't have that allowed them to succeed in the mission? Because we want to learn from them how to not be afraid of challenges. So there's a psychologist from Stanford University who wrote a book called Mindset. And basically they took kids and they gave them challenges, difficult mathematical problems, difficult puzzles, and they saw they were different kids. Some kids, the more challenging the puzzles became, the more involved they got, the more excited they got, the more driven they became to find the solutions. And others, when it got too difficult, they started to back away and give up. And so they studied these different children. What makes one child get more enthusiastic as the challenges get bigger and the problems get bigger and more excitement to try to solve it, while the other students put up their hands and give up and accept defeat. And what they discovered was that there's 2 types of mindsets. There are those people who have fixed mindsets, and there are those people that have growth mindsets. People with fixed mindsets, they say, these are my skills, these are my capabilities. If you push them beyond what they're capable of doing, they give up. You know why? Because they're afraid to fail, because they don't believe that they could go beyond their fixed abilities. And therefore they're afraid to push themselves or stretch themselves, because they're just going to reveal their inadequacy and that they failed. So they don't want everyone to see how vulnerable they are, that they're failures. So they back off and they give up. But then there are people who understand that you're not a set, fixed amount of abilities and qualifications and skills. You're constantly growing. And therefore, if you push yourself, you have a growth mindset. Maybe I can't do this now, but with hard work and perseverance, I could stretch myself and be capable of doing that. And the psychologist, her name is Dweck, I think, she says something very interesting. She says there's a big danger. A lot of times parents label their kids, or schools label their kids, gifted, special, talented. He says what you're doing is you're setting your kid up for failure, because if I'm a gifted child, everyone expects me to be gifted. I'm afraid to disappoint everyone that I'm not gifted. Instead of labeling kids, you're fixed, you're already a gifted child, you're a special, you're this, you're that, say to them, you are what you make of yourself. Depending on how far and how hard you work, you will stretch your abilities. And that could be perhaps the difference between these 2 spies and the other 10. The first 10 spies, they were afraid to fail, so they gave up. The other 2, Joshua got a special blessing. Moshe blessed him, so he was in a growth mindset. I'm going to overcome the bad advice of the spies. And remember that Caleb was a descendant of the tribe of Judah. Judah is the brother who's the ultimate growth mindset, because he was the one who sold Joseph into slavery, but he repented and changed his ways and became the one who actually stood up for for Benjamin when he came to Egypt. So his descendant had the growth mindset that we could rise to the occasion and achieve things even beyond our natural abilities. Last week was the 65th anniversary of the first person who ever climbed Mount Everest, which was Sir Edmund Hillary. And they tell the story that the first time Sir Edmund Hillary climbed Mount Everest, he failed. He didn't get to the peak, to the summit. When he came down, there were reporters and everyone was waiting for him. And it was 1953. And they said, Mr. Edmonton, what do you have to say? You didn't succeed. And he looked at Mount Everest. And he said, Mount Everest, you beat me this time. But next time around, I'm going to beat you. You know why? Because you've already stopped growing. You've done all the growing you're going to do. But I'm still growing. And sure enough, he came back and he beat Mount Everest. He climbed it the second time around. because he had a growth mindset. And when a person thinks of themselves as done, complete, that's when they begin to fail, because they're afraid. When they know that they could grow and achieve more and higher, greater heights, then they persevere, they prevail, and they succeed.